Hello, hello. This is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and a bunch of you just jumped in. Hello. Thank you guys for watching live. Thank you guys for those who watch it back later. Today we're going to be talking about, I was anxious to talk about this actress who was on Twilight, who played Victoria, then she ended up getting ousted by Bryce Howard Dallas. I think it's her full last name because I think it's abbreviated, but Ron Howard's daughter. But she went to a Target store and was very upset because her 7-year-old non-binary child was very happy that they saw this pride stuff and that they're celebrating me. So I want to show her video, and then she also had a reaction video to the reaction that people gave to her. And I thought her video was honestly a really good reason why we shouldn't be doing all this pride stuff. And I know there's people who watch and support my stuff who are of the LGBT community. They're just not insane, but it's so much about vanity and validation. And I don't feel like other things are like that, like Black History Month. People argue about whether we should have Black History Month or not, but Black History Month isn't about me validating myself. It's about giving honor to those who've made great accomplishments in history. And pride, is one of the 7 deadly sins. And if you haven't seen the video, you'll know what I'm talking about when I get to that segment. But so much of this is it's a lot of people who are, at least from her video, it seems like there's a lot of people who are unwell who need that sort of affirmation. And I can show you an example of what I mean before we jump into it. But since I'm on the topic, let me just show this really quickly. I saw this, someone shared this over the weekend in my Facebook feed. This artist drew this photo here. And it says, changing a pronoun costs a word. Not doing so may cost my life. So a mutual of mine had shared it and said, this emotional manipulation is why some people think violence and death threats are appropriate responses to misgendering, because they do turn into a life or death situation. And I had said, it's also why gender affirming care isn't seen as legit help to most of us. If you're standing on the ledge of a rooftop about to jump, and if I don't affirm your identity, you are not well. Calling you a she will not make you well. You are still dangling from the ledge. So think of it this way. Think of like, there are people who have gender dysphoria who understand they're not the opposite sex. They have discomfort in their body, and they have changed their outward appearance to try to kind of, I guess in a way, trick their brain to a degree to make themselves comfortable in their own skin. So in a way, let's assume for a moment that they're kind of in a snow globe and they're a bit trapped, that they themselves are the snow globe. When it comes to this pronoun stuff and the demands of everyone else, they're trying to trap everyone else within the snow globe too. They don't want you to be out. You have to be within the confined space, using their language, adapting to their ideology, knowing that you're not free, but having to go along with everything, or else the whole thing might shatter. And I don't think that makes you well. I don't think that makes me well or society well. I think it makes society very unhealthy. And people ask, like, why do you talk about this topic all the time? Because I don't think we're going in a good direction. And I think some of it is on purpose from a lot of powers that be. I think a lot of people are taking advantage, whether it's financially, politically, and I think the political aims are a lot more devious than we want you to vote here. I think there's the more concessions you kind of make to this particular ideology, the more that you can undermine other sort of values and stuff. Like hate speech laws, if I can't speak freely and call someone like Dylan Mulvaney a man, which is something that he thinks should be illegal, then you're limiting my free speech. So I think there's other ways to get at our freedoms by uplifting this different class of people. And if the goal is to make it so that we're all emotionally blackmailed into compliance, then I think that's an easier route that they feel that they can get to where they want to be. So this is really disturbing that someone would make this, that so many people feel like this, and they're guilting you out of, it's not costing you anything. I think it cost us a lot. Like I think well, I believe it's a lie if I'm saying something that's supposed to be because if I don't believe that you're a man and I'm using he, him pronouns because that's supposed to affirm the idea that you're, well, I'm supposed to use she pronouns because I'm supposed to affirm this idea that you're actually a woman. I feel like that's an immoral thing that I'm doing, and I find it to be actually sinful. But on a greater level, the idea that we could all just surrender sort of objective reality and this agreed upon world that we've had for all this time, and now we have to surrender it again to be trapped in the snow globe. I don't think that's good, and will lead to darker places. So I think it's important to talk about it. I really think it's important to push back against. So thank you guys for by the way, watching live, people commenting, people liking. That all does really help with the show. If you like what I do here, please consider going to blacktnews.com, leaving a donation on the website, cost of stream, Remo website, all the good stuff. So if you can support, appreciate it. You guys can do super chats on YouTube as well. You can, if you're watching on Facebook, you guys can give stars. And also check out different merchandise that we have on the store as well. I'll just show a thing or two, like we got the black tea mug. I know someone asked about it. It's on the mug. I mean, it's on the website of the mug. We got the "You Are Not That Special" shirts. We also do have those in mugs, so maybe you need to pass those out for Pride Month a bit. So go ahead and check out different merch that we have at the store. I also want to talk a little bit about this DeSantis Trump stuff and some of the surrogates. Some of their stuff that they've been talking about this weekend has been pretty wild and unhelpful, which we talked about that on Friday, but since then it's only gotten worse, I believe. So I hope ultimately, I know primaries can get dirty. I know that people can have disagreements, but at the end of the day, I really hope that there is a plan in place for people to ultimately come out on top and win and make a difference. But I think there's some concerning sort of tit for tats that just aren't constructive, that aren't wise. And so I think how you conduct yourself while you're fighting your opponents and your enemies is going to say a lot about your plans and stuff going forward when you win. So, oh boy. Anyway, I want to start with the Twilight stuff first before I get to the DeSantis Trump shenanigans. Also want to talk about some stuff, this Twilight headline from the New York Times, and how they said that it was missing kink. And I know there's like a different sort of thought process or meaning for kink. I don't know that they meant that, though. It seems like a very weird woke review, so we'll get to that as well. But first, let's go ahead and watch this video. Again, this is from an actress who was in the first and second Twilight. She played Victoria. Rachel, gosh, what's her name? Her last name is a little weird. I think it's French or something. Not that the French are weird. I'm just not French. So, it's Rachel. Just want to get her name right. Rachel Lefevre, maybe. Sorry if I'm butchering that. But she went to Target and was very upset about the Pride display. So we'll go ahead and watch this video together, and then we will watch her response video, because there's a lot of people who had a lot to say about it, which I'm not surprised, which she shouldn't have been surprised. Perhaps she wasn't surprised, but oh boy, it's a thing.
Into Target, and the right behind me here, where you see all these lovely swimsuits, that's where the Pride display used to be. And I came in here 2 days ago, and my 7-year-old, who's non-binary, saw it and said, "Look, Mom, it's Pride. Look, they're gonna celebrate me." And because some people complained and threw some stuff to the ground, or I don't know what happened, they have moved the Pride section to the back of the store. So the next time my 7-year-old comes to Target, or rather, I can't bring them here anymore, at least for the entire month of June, because if they walk in, and all the other people who walk in and go, "Where'd it go?" are going to realize that they are being successful in trying to erase them. We could do so much better than this. We're not supposed to negotiate with terrorists. We can do so much better than this.
So, a couple things. One, yes, Target stores they've been removing some products, like I think all the Satanist related stuff from the Satanist artists has been removed. Like you can't find it on the website last I looked. So that stuff has been removed because it's not a good look for like a family store to be associated with artists who are Satanists. Wonder how that happened. So they taken out some stuff. And when I went to Target, I didn't see the shirts with like the naked trans people on it. But there was Pride stuff when I went to my local closest Target. And it was still up at the front of the store. Now, there are Targets who are moving their stuff to the back of the store, the Pride stuff, to like smaller sections. So it's still in the store. And they have the bathing suits and stuff up front. Now, what she could tell her child, and I'm not sure if they're actually boy or girl. I tried to read a few articles, but they just kept referring to them as non-binary and they, that, whatever. So, okay. So, she could tell her child that it's the summer and they're trying to sell bathing suits. If that's the easiest way that she wants to spare their feelings. Because stores usually have seasonal things, important things that they want up front. Now Target's been doing Pride for a while now. And they usually do have that stuff up front during the time. But of course, like their tuck-friendly bathing suits cause a big outrage with people. Their bathing suits for kids that had... that are for all gender expressions that were like skirts or whatever that concern people. Even like their tops, I saw a label or whatever that was like, it looked like it was supposed to like smooth you out or whatever. So I think, is that supposed to like kind of also be like chest bindery in a way? I don't know. But Target does sell chest binders. There's people who have stopped shopping at Target ever since like 7 years ago when they decided to do the bathroom policies. There's people who stopped shopping at Target fairly recently when they decided to start selling chest binders for young women, which that sort of, I read a post last week that someone shared about the deviousness and the destructive behavior of the chest binders, because even if you say, well, that's just social affirmation, it really does do damage to your body and it does damage to your breasts. So they start not looking so good anyway. So if you think that's just maybe like oh, we'll wait and see how it kind of actually is, eventually you're conditioning these people to eventually chop off their healthy breasts. So I didn't appreciate Target selling this stuff either. So we're at a different sort of emotional period now, seeing some of the stuff that they were selling this particular Pride. So there's been reactions, and Target has decided to move it to the back of the store. So they haven't got rid of it, she admits, but they've just moved it. So yes, she could just easily tell her 7-year-old child that they have moved these things, and there's bathing suits because that's what they want to sell in the summer to their folks, and they don't want that to be the focal point or whatever. But the thing about her child, her coming in the store with her child who's non-binary, let's just get that out of the way. You don't have a non-binary child, not just because they're 7 or whatever. No one is non-binary. There's that whole thing. But how does your 7-year-old child know that they're non-binary? Rosie O'Donnell actually was going viral. If you guys have seen the video, talking about her daughter was saying that she's non-binary, and she's like, well, why do you say that? And Rosie O'Donnell told her that she could still like boy things and be a girl. And Rosie O'Donnell talked about how she was always seen as different, she's a lesbian and stuff, and but she's always been into more boy things, and so she told her that you can still be a girl and still be all into boy things. That's totally fine. Today's generation is so worrisome about how they're so obsessed with, it's like they want to break the traditions of these different gender categories, but they're such slaves to them. And if you don't like a particular thing, they're like, oh, I must not be a girl. Oh, I must not be a boy. My sister started watching the TV show about Sylvester Stallone and his daughters. And the girls mentioned that when they were little, they think their dad didn't know quite what to do with them. And he'd have them do all this kind of crazy training and all kinds of other stuff growing up or whatever. But they mentioned that when they got older, he could bond with them in different kind of ways because they decided to like and adapt to things that he was into. So I'm not into like smoking or anything like that, but they went to like a cigar lounge and was smoking cigars, and they're into cigars and shooting and all the kinds of stuff that their dad is into. And so things that maybe you wouldn't think traditionally female, but they're beautiful, feminine women, they don't have any gripes about their gender identities from anything that I can see. So they're not even like masculine and liking, liking these masculine things, or traditionally maybe masculine things. They're still very feminine in their appearance and their approach, but they still like, things that predominantly males will be into, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. It's crazy to me that we're not giving people space to just be themselves. When people are upset with their appearance or whatever, they're just so quick to change who they are. My sister did a TikTok. My youngest sister, she did a TikTok this past week talking about how she was having a conversation about plastic surgery and would she change her face or whatever, or do anything to her body. And so she said no. She's kind of like, what for? And so she said when she was younger, there were things about herself that she really didn't like. And she wrote a book and talked about her struggle with she actually was anorexic at one point. But she talked about how there were things about her body that she did not like, that eventually she had to grow to love, and has come to grow and to love herself and her body. And it makes me genuinely sad that there's so many people out there who decide that they're so uncomfortable with themselves, and they're so hateful about things about themselves that they feel so radically that they have to change them. So and do a 180. Like, I was thinking about young men who might want to be females, and I'm like, you don't even know who you're gonna be even in your 20s, or how you may look like in your 20s. Some men don't even like get attractive until they're like 30 years old. I especially feel like that is the case with white men, but like, but they'll be like young men or in their 20s or whatever, and they'll want to shift and be ladies. I'm like, just give yourself time, space to figure yourself out before you dramatically change who you are. You'll come into your own eventually, but you have to give life space to happen. So her 7-year-old being convinced that they're non-binary, that's who taught them that? And I say them because I don't know if it's a boy or a girl. I don't know that. But who taught your child that? Who taught your child that they were non-binary and that it was okay to think that and to not give them space to actually figure out themselves in their skin as a boy or a girl? How do they know that? How do they know that? And so coming in the store and seeing the pride stuff and the child saying, oh, look, they're celebrating me. It's not your darn birthday. It's not your birthday. You want a celebration, have a party, have a birthday. So her being so upset because her child felt validated and was getting validation from the rainbow stuff everywhere, all the stuff on the clothes and whatnot in the store. I don't think that's healthy. And to feel so sad because they move the stuff in the back of the store because now they're not catering to you, they're catering to the rest of their customer base and what's good for their bottom line as a company. And again, they didn't get rid of it, they just moved it. And now she's all upset saying, I can't take my child back to the store for an entire month at least. And they have these displays up and it's not even June. It's not even June yet, but you know, the stuff they bring the stuff a little bit early so people can prepare and I guess have that stuff during that time. But again, just tell them it's summer. People, they're trying to sell swimsuits or whatever. But the child has to be so devastated and she's so afraid of her fragile child because the stores are no longer celebrating them in the way that they feel that they ought to be celebrated because you can't have this group participation. That's crazy. It's all about vanity for your fragile egos. They do call it Pride Month. They do call it Pride Month, which I mentioned in the top of the hour that I think it's different than something like Black History Month. Like Black History Month isn't a celebration of me or my family or anything like that. It's or other Black people who are just kind of in modern times, not if you don't have any sort of history. It's about uniquely American history, I would say, and the accomplishments of these underdogs within our history and what they've been able to accomplish. Now, there's a lot of people who think that we shouldn't have a Black History Month. And I understand that argument that we should just be celebrating or incorporating Black history so much within our actual history in school and our conversations every day that we shouldn't need a particular month to uplift it and celebrate it. I think Black History Month is pretty different than all the other like cultural heritage months and stuff because it's again rooted in history and those accomplishments rather than it just about being Black people. But Pride is, again, it's a celebration of this vanity of outlined by this woman and her child of celebrating what? Because you have certain feelings, because you do certain behaviors, like, yeah. So you want to be uplifted for your vanity, your pride, etc. And if people don't adhere to that, they're so offended. People got so mad at me on Twitter because I said that June is going to be Life Month for me because on June 24th, that's when the anniversary of Roe v. Wade is of it being overturned. And it's also my birthday month. It's also my sister's birthday, which her birthday is on the day that it actually fell on the 24th, and mine's on the 10th. So it's just ours are 2 weeks apart. So, I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of pro-life content during that month and stuff. So, people were mad, not just because of the fact that I'm pro-life, but because I wasn't going to celebrate Pride because I wasn't going to be into it or whatever. But to the effect of people arguing that we don't need a Black History Month. Like, do you guys feel like Pride has stopped? We've had Trans Visibility Day. We had the anti-discrimination against trans, bisexual, whatever, blah blah blah, that we had just a week ago. It's been like nonstop the whole time. It seems like there's always a new day, a new celebration, a thing going on at the White House. You know, they're mentioning stuff like all the time. So, and I feel like these stores, they celebrate Pride more than they celebrate anything else. It's a bigger deal than things like Black History Month, etc. If they really need all these stores to make her child feel, happy with themselves, and they're gonna be so fragile because they move the stuff to the back of the store, that is a huge problem. Which they already have a huge problem because your 7-year-old thinks they're non-binary. So where did your child get that idea? So anyway, let's look at her response that she gave to all this. So she was released something on Instagram about it. So, I believe this is the one.
So in my post about Target, I mentioned that my non-binary child was 7 years old. And firstly, thank you so much to all of you who said beautiful things and offered support. Thank you. To those of you who wrote hurtful, disgusting, you know what you wrote, you know who you are. Boy, was I angry. And I punched back in a post and I posted it. And about 90 seconds later, I deleted it because something dawned on me. I was raised by an abusive mother and an alcoholic father who didn't do anything about it. And so I know how much pain you have to be in to hate that hard. I know the kind of hate that you have to put inside you to numb the hurt. So instead of hating back, I just choose to know how much pain you're in. Whether you're lonely, whether you feel put down, whatever it is that you are numbing with hating other people, I want to say that when you can find the courage to face that pain and you get rid of the anger, I hope there are people there who embrace you. I hope there are people there who can love you and hold space for you. And when you are ready to show up as your authentic self, the way God made you, full of love, I will be here to say, hi, it's nice to meet you. So in my post about...
So I thought it was Rich throwing God in there at the end as your love is your authentic self, and that's when you'll be able to whatever. So people bring up God so much to kind of like, you're not supposed to judge, and what about love? And I'm like, you guys don't even understand what that biblical perspective of love is. Like, love doesn't, the Bible talks about love and it says it doesn't rejoice in wrongdoing but rejoices with the truth. So if you're not non-binary, which you're obviously not, if you're not actually a boy, you're not actually a girl, whatever, I'm not being loving or kind by going along with something that's untrue, going along with something that is contrary to the actual design of your creator who forged you in your mother's womb. And unfortunately, when you came out of your mother's womb, she was crazy and put a lot of ideas in your head, or was around a lot of people who put ideas in your head, or allowed you to be around people who put a lot of ideas in your head that made you reject who you actually are supposed to be. So I find that rich, but they don't have any real concept of real, like, biblical love in a sense. It's not just affection. It's not just being nice. People can be nice to your face, and people can love you into a grave. People can love you into a grave. Think about how people treat addicts. And addicts eventually need to reach some kind of bottom so they can get back to the surface. Some people will coddle, especially if you're a celebrity and you're into drugs and other stuff like that, and people around you, a bunch of yes men and folks, will will just give you what you want to the point of you put yourself into an early grave. Love is not always affirmation. It is often not affirmation. Love is often being tough and being real and being honest, because it's very easy for strangers to be dishonest with you. They'll never see you again. I guess it's also easy for them to be honest if they never really have to see you again. But it's hard for people who you associate with yourself all the time to have to sometimes hurt your feelings. But sometimes your feelings can't be spared to get to the truth. So this whole turning it as if people saying your 7-year-old's not non-binary, you're what you're doing is abusive, or you're doing something wrong, since since so much of their worldview and self-worth is tied up into a rainbow display at Target. If pointing that out makes you think like, oh, you must have been abused, like I was abused. Maybe you want to affirm so tightly because of your particular issues that you had that you haven't dealt with. So now you're coddling your child. I mean, that kind of seems like a better explanation than we're all just abused, hateful people. But I don't know, that's kind of like the gaslighting technique, I suppose, or I don't know if gaslighting is the right word, but it's a propaganda technique called jamming, to make everybody who disagrees with you, to make them seem like they're backwards. There's a book called After the Ball that was written by I think 2 people went to Harvard or associated with Harvard. One was like a marketer, and I forget what the other person did, but they wrote a book about transforming public opinion on the LGBT stuff. And so it was a propaganda book, and there was a couple of different techniques that they used in there, and they did refer to it as propaganda. But this idea that people who had any sort of opposition, the goal is to make them seem like they're backward kind of people. So her associating anyone who doesn't agree with her with being unloved abusers and stuff, continuing a cycle of violence or whatever. Maybe you're just wrong, and maybe you can try to understand where people are coming from as opposed to just projecting your trauma onto other people. So regardless of however she feels or however her child feels, the reality of the situation is her child is not non-binary. I don't know if it's a boy or girl the child is, but they're one of the two. And people pointing that out isn't wrong. I'm assuming a lot of people did not talk to her in the most humane way, perhaps. And I'm not taking accountability for things I didn't say, but people can obviously have these conversations in a more delicate but still stern manner. So if she received unnecessary hate, that's unfortunate. But she did call everybody terrorists. Did she not? And there are people who are going around messing with like their displays at Target and harassing customers. We talked about that on Friday. I showed a video and I was like, I said, don't do this. This is awful. Don't bother the workers like that. When I went into the store, I did not bother anyone. I just took some photos, did a quick video, and I left. Like, don't bother the people like that. Don't ruin the property that's not yours. That is not appropriate. It's not appropriate. You can vote with your dollars and obviously encourage other people to do the same, but you don't have to resort to some kind of vandalism. So that's not good. But she called people terrorists, and thinks that everyone else is wrong for speaking up against this stuff. Again, Target has had pride for a while now, but the big tipping point is one, I think, the demonic stuff where the satanic designer But the tuck friendly bathing suits, the having the men in the bathing suits to model them, and also the stuff for kids that are for all gender expressions. Um, this is a social contagion, and people, I believe, need to speak up against it before it gets worse. Because what I absolutely know is that she does not have a child who is 7 years old who is non-binary. That child was taught that, and we're not terrorists for speaking up and telling you the truth, lady. Speaking of non-binary, uh, I did a YouTube short and a TikTok short with this, so maybe you guys have already seen this video, but I would like to show you the full video here, that I replied to from this woman who was upset because, well, I said non-binary people don't exist, and so she says I exist. And her whole video, which I didn't have time to show the whole video because, little time restraints, obviously, with YouTube Shorts, and I wanted to keep it a minute, and so and I wanted to keep it a minute on YouTube on YouTube and TikTok. So I want to play this whole video, because there was so much to say. But this is an adult woman who has children, who presents very feminine, who is saying that she's non-binary, and her example is just so bizarre that I have to show you guys.
I was born and raised in Colombia. And then I moved to the United States and I got an American residency, and then I got an American citizenship. If I told you I'm American, in spite of my accent, you believe me. Because I am. I don't have to prove it. And asking me to show you legal documents to prove it is incredibly inappropriate and also xenophobic. I told you I was non-binary, and you said non-binary people don't exist, and I do. You said nobody's non-binary. I am. I am non-binary. So either I don't exist, or you are transphobic. If you tell me that you're American, I believe you. If you tell me that you're a Christian, I believe you. If you tell me that you're a woman, I believe you. I'm just asking for the same thing.
So many things here. Again, I couldn't get all my thoughts complete into a minute, so I'm gonna go ahead and share some here. So my first sort of reaction, how I wanted to reply, was to my sis. I bought Tina, my sister, some Thanos rings one year for Christmas. So I did ask her where her rings were, but her fingers are considerably smaller than mine, and I didn't want to stretch out her rings beyond a point where she could wear them. So I dropped that, but I was going to do a video with the rings, snap, and then take her video and do a dispersion effect. And like so I was going to snap her like Thanos, and she said she doesn't exist. So I decided to go a different route and just replied to her, which was probably the better route, because people thought that I gave a pretty complete reply that was also respectful. So it was probably best that I didn't go with that initial reaction. But first off, she said that she became an American, and that even though she has an accent, that maybe I wouldn't question her if she said she's an American. And the reason for that being is that you can become an American. It's not so crazy that her story happened, if it's true. I don't know if it's true or not. I the first time I really interacted with her. So but yeah, if she's an American, she has an accent, that's not so crazy. People immigrate over to the United States and become American. You can become a citizen. That's not so crazy. People have dual citizenship. You can grow up. You can be second generation and still have heavy accents because of the environment that you live in. My mom has a like a country Detroit accent, not because she's from down south, but because she grew up with people who had accents or whatever, and it just kind of developed into this Detroit kind of accent. And she's not the only person who has one. But I mean, I don't have it. My rest of my siblings don't have it. But she has a pretty distinct accent because of the environment that she grew up with. So it's not so strange. And she said that if she's an American citizen, she doesn't have to prove it to me. No, she doesn't have to prove it to me, but you have to prove it to someone. If I'm going to go vote or someone's going to go vote, or you need some kind of identification to prove who you are, but to get that registration and stuff to be able to vote, you know, there's some kind of documentation. There's some kind of records there. If I go to the airport, I have a passport. There's some kind of, you know, identification there. When I went to go get my driver's license, I had to have, I brought my birth certificate. I brought information that said where I lived. So yes, you do have to prove there's some kind of record somewhere. So maybe you don't have to prove it to me. I don't know her. Like it's not a big deal. No, she doesn't have to prove anything to me. But the reason she doesn't have to prove she's non-binary, but because it's not something she can prove, she just isn't. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. Sex is binary, and you'll say that, oh, but sex and gender aren't the same thing. They're meaningfully intertwined. The etymology of the word gender has the two being used interchangeably. They're basically synonyms. And the point of people saying that sex and gender are separate isn't because they actually want to keep them separate. It's because they want to use gender to undermine sex. And you can see that with why. So if sex and gender are different, then why do you still have people trying to go into sex segregated spaces? Why are they still trying to go into women's bathrooms? Why are they still trying to go into women's locker rooms? Why are they still trying to go in women's prisons? It's not just a safety issue with women's prisons, but you also don't want the population intermingling and people getting pregnant, which we have seen with trans women being in prisons with women, you know? So and it's a safety issue also because men are more, they're stronger than females are. So if sex and gender are separate and gender is just how you identify, why do you need to get surgery? Why do you need to get hormones? Why do you have sex surgeries to affirm your gender identity? So none of that, it really makes sense. And it's all really a game. I understand the game, but I acknowledge it's a game, and so be mad because I understand what you're trying to do. So no, you're not non-binary. You got one of the two gametes. It's ova or it's sperm, and she had kids. She's obviously a woman. You can't change that. You can become an American, but you can't become a man or a woman. You just are a man or a woman, period. A man is a adult male. A woman is an adult female. That's how it is. You cannot like it, and you can disagree with me, but you're fine living your life being wrong. But to say that you're either transphobic or I don't exist, it's such hysterical language when people keep saying I don't exist. Then you're trying to say I don't exist. I'm like, I wouldn't be talking to you and having a conversation with you if I didn't think you existed. I wouldn't be doing that. You're not my imaginary friend. I would certainly imagine someone else. Like, you're not my imaginary friend that I'm having a conversation with. So I think you're real. I just think you're wrong. And it's just really that simple. And it's not like Peter Pan, where if I say non-binary people don't exist, that you drop down dead and we all have to clap until you're brought back to life. It's not like that. If you don't like what I have to say, you can just keep scrolling on somewhere and just either live with hurt feelings or get over it. But you're not, fortunately for that person, she's not going to be snapped out of existence because we have a disagreement about something. And I also don't see how her being non-binary is the same as me being transphobic, if that were true. And I've had that allegation thrown at me a lot now, and people say that what I say is hateful. I don't really get that, but just because you hate it doesn't make it hateful. What was that scene on The Office when Michael Scott was like, it was a hate crime or something, or like, it wasn't a hate crime. He's like, well, I hated it. It doesn't work like that. I know people want it to work like that, but if you don't like what I have to say, and if what I say is so offensive that you deem me not agreeing with you or not affirming your identity is transphobic, that's not gonna hurt my feelings. If that's how you feel, you can sling that word. I don't care. But what a heck of a thing to say. So that was a full video of that instance. So we got a 7-year-old non-binary child and a grown woman who has kids of her own who is now saying that she's non-binary, and that if I don't would accept that, I'm saying that she doesn't exist, which is that's something, guys. It's really something. Anyway, let's move on. Really quickly, I want to talk about this DeSantis Trump situation over the weekend. So DeSantis announced last week, and Trump has been going at him anyway, but since DeSantis has come out, he's been going, at Trump, criticizing him in ways that he didn't criticize him before. And I think Trump has some things that he can really focus on that would put him ahead in some regards. But I've mentioned this several times, that opening the door up for the COVID stuff is a big loser issue, I think, for him. So DeSantis has really been going at him for that. But anyway, there was a Trump spokesperson who went on Newsmax and was talking about DeSantis and said he's not really someone that's for the country. He's out for himself. And the reason being is because he's ran for several different offices in the past couple of years. Now, I don't really find that particularly compelling, because he's just padding his resume. Like he's served, he's gone into politics. He's did a position well, and then he got elevated. He did a position well. You get elevated. That's kind of just how it works in this field. There's some people who just try to launch into being president, which obviously Trump did, and he was successful in that. And there's other people who might try to go for a higher office and it doesn't work out, and they have to go back and start at a different level. Like John James ran for Senate twice and it didn't work out for him, so he tried for Congress and he won that congressional seat. But some people start, at Congress, and then they move on and they move on. And so saying that he's out for himself because he's built up a resume of different government positions and running for stuff isn't really compelling. So Christina Pashaw, who was a spokesperson, but for the him as governor, but she's moved on to the campaign side of things for some time, I think. So so she said, I think officially they made that move sometime, but she's like, oh, they're saying that he's not for the country. This is our response. So that was the DeSantis war room, posting pictures of his actual service. So then you had her reply was to show Pete Buttigieg, who served, and to kind of prove just because you serve doesn't mean that you're good, I guess, was the response. And what a heck of a way to go for Memorial Day weekend. So why? Why? I mean, I guess I get their point, but why? It seems like a really bad point, a really bad way to go. So that wasn't the end as well. They also, posted pictures of other folks who I guess they're not too fond of, and like Kinzinger, and why? Why? So DeSantis war room was like, being in the military doesn't mean bleep. Happy Memorial Day. So just because you serve doesn't mean that you're somehow, it doesn't mean you're going to make all the right decisions. It doesn't mean you're going to play for the right team. It doesn't mean that that you don't have nefarious interests going forward. It doesn't mean that that no one can criticize you. But, gosh, this is such a weird way to go. A weird way to go. They could have just been like, we respect Ron's service, but that doesn't mean that he's good. He's gonna be a good commander in chief or something. That they could have just went that kind of route. But mentioning other people's service and downing other folks just doesn't. It's not sitting well with a lot of people. And again, I think it's not good. If I think Trump needs to reprimand some of his folks and refocus and make better decisions. But they've been going back and forth all weekend like cats and dogs. There was someone from the Babylon Bee who tweeted at Christina and was like, what the bleep are you doing? And used like the F word. And or I don't know if that was the exact response, but Seth Dillon didn't like his response, and he was like, and he let him know that, and so he retweeted Seth Dillon and came at Seth, and so Seth was just like, take the B out of your bio. So he just fired him on the spot on Twitter for how they're reacting. And so he probably shouldn't have tried to step up to his boss either. And some people are like, oh, he got fired for being, anti DeSantis and being pro Trump. And Seth isn't like, that isn't why. And other folks are like, the Babylon Bee is a parody website that is also run by Christian conservatives. And that's probably wasn't the way to go. And just, trying to flex to his boss or stand up to his boss on Twitter probably wasn't good for them. And Seth was like, no, that didn't help either. So Mike Cernovich mentioned like how much these teams were fighting over the weekend. He's like, do any of these folks actually have a plan for like ballot harvesting, and what are you going to do about the actual election day plan? So I hope there's some kind of level of ultimate competency for the end game, because the battle isn't just you winning over your opponent, because after that you actually do have to fight the good fight and win the race. And if you don't have a good strategy that you're working on right now, that's going to be a big issue. It can't just be about winning the primary. There has to be some kind of long-term plan. And, I was thinking about urban areas and stuff this past weekend, and I was thinking, like, if you only go into urban areas to protect the vote against people who you assume are trying to steal it, that probably explains why you're not winning that area. Probably explains that. And I'm not saying that there's not shady stuff that happens in urban areas as far as voting and stuff. And I like, sometimes there's stuff that goes on in like Detroit area, but a lot of stuff could be really pinned down to ignorance rather than maliciousness. And sometimes it's good to discern which is which. But if the only time you send an army of Republicans into those areas is on election day or election week or whatever, in order to protect the vote from these folks that you just think are trying to overrun and take the election, and you didn't do your due diligence throughout the actual election cycle trying to get people to change their hearts and minds and knock on their door and say, hi, and, I'm such and such, will you consider voting for me? Here's my plans. I'm gonna, lower your taxes. I'm gonna make sure that you find a way to make life easier for you and your family. My opponents are doing this. I'm gonna do this instead. If you don't take the time to do those things, don't be surprised when you're not competitive, and then people look at, on election night and they're like, how did we lose and get like, only 10% of the vote or 5% of the vote in these areas? It's like, did you show up? Did you ask for the vote? And I know it's very hard to get those blocks to change their minds and to open up their heart to somebody else. But it's a long-term process. Republicans didn't lose like the black vote, for example, overnight. People pretend like, you know, there was this like that all kind of shifted immediately after Goldwater or something, but that's not even true. The vote started to shift actually earlier in the 30s and stuff with the promise of the New Deal, which is interesting because a lot of the stuff in the New Deal didn't end up helping black people very much, but those votes were like peeling off over time, and now they're pretty much stuck and solidified, and Republicans might get 12, 13, 14% of the vote, but it's not impossible to win some of those back, but it will take time. It will take time. And the Democrats are very annoyed that there's the Hispanic vote that is going, you know, more of them are open up to Republicans, especially as, you know, people who left fascism or socialism and stuff, and they don't want a repeat in this country here. So, and a lot of it are very religious and they don't like a lot of this craziness with the social stuff. But, and you might say, well, how come the black people aren't doing that or thinking that? A lot of them are unaware. Like, how many ads have you put on their radio stations or on their local stations with TV? Like, and again, how many times have you knocked on their doors? You just expect people to know who you are, and I mean, like, you go to these same areas and you're hoping your message got out when it didn't. Like, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. But if Trump and DeSantis don't have plans to really try to go after those votes, they're going to be screwed. Like, I think DeSantis will have a better chance picking up some of those suburban women voters that have left Trump or whatever. And independents really don't like Trump, guys. I hate to tell you that, but so that's why you're seeing polling with DeSantis maybe doing better in election and stuff against Biden, even though Trump is like just dominating DeSantis on any poll any poll right now for the Republican primary. But at the end of the day, are you going to be able to get enough people in the middle and then some of the moderate Dems to come out and flip over? Not if you don't have a long-term plan. And I hope, besides this bickering that they're doing, that they have some kind of long-term plan. And setting up a few offices and having bus tours with people wearing like blacks for such and such shirt isn't going to do it. Really isn't going to do it if people aren't actually doing the groundwork. And I don't mean just dropping lit. You got to actually knock a door and talk to a person from time to time. So again, I will say this one more time before moving on. Do not be surprised that if you lose big in areas that you only showed up in to make sure that people didn't cheat and steal the vote. Because if that's the only time you show up, they probably didn't steal it. You probably didn't earn it. You probably didn't earn it. And don't think that people are just going to look up stuff and be like, oh, it's my time to vote. Let me look up this person and, you know, make an informed decision. There's so many people who do not do that. So many people. It's overwhelming. So if you want to win, you got to do the work. And this primary, like, back and forth Twitter nonsense is not how you're going to win a general election. So anyway, moving on. New York Times posted a kind of a interesting headline for one of their Little Mermaid reviews. And if you're on social media, follow me on social media, you're probably already like aware of it, but they were upset about the lack of kink, I guess, in the film, which is pretty weird, pretty strange. And people are pointing out that kink has different meanings. And it could mean like, oh, a kink in the plans and stuff. I don't know if that's really the case of what they're going for. The writer seems pretty woke. And I don't know if that's the context. I really don't. But even so, New York Times has editors, right? And they do somewhere. And why? Just why would you have that be the headline? And there isn't, it's been up for a minute and it's been talked about and ratioed, and a lot of people have comments and have retweeted it and stuff, and they haven't gone out of their way to be like, no, that's not what we meant by that. At least I haven't found any sign of kind of pushback from that. So that's strange. But the not the bee wrote about it, and a lot of people are writing about it. But they mentioned how some of the stuff in the article is actually really woke. And so this is a bit of an article. That's right. What Disney's Little Mermaid is missing is kink. Disney needed to include more sexual grooming of children, according to the article. And again, maybe B's reading into it, but here's a bit. The rowboat scene in which Ariel shows Eric how to say her name, a scene that produces Kiss the Girl, the Calypso number that Sebastian, voiced with an island accent by David Diggs, sings to Eric into planting one of Ariel and unwittingly restoring her voice. The lyrics have been tweaked to add more consent. Is the swooniest things get. Almost kissing is the swooniest things get. ... So I don't know if they meant kink in another kind of way, guys. While the critique is certainly getting the most attention on the right, no one on the left seems to be complaining that the rest of the article complains about the race switching. It makes a lot of the same critiques those against the movie has made. The colorization hasn't led to a racialized, radicalized adventure. It's not a black adaptation, an interpretation that imbues white material with black culture until it's something completely new. It's not The Wiz. It's still a Disney movie, one whose heroine now, Psy, happens to be black. The writer also wonders about the historical setting of the movie and how out of place it all is. I mean, with all these black women running around in a period that seems like the 19th century, the talk of ships and empire, Brazil, and Cartagena just makes me wonder about the cargo in these boats. So in case you're not getting the reference there, the writer is implying that Prince Eric is transporting slaves, which is ironic because in the movie, Eric is adopted and the king and queen are black. No kink and the implied promotion of slavery. I mean, how much more sexist and racist can Disney get? The point of it all is that sooner the corporations like Disney realize they'll never really satisfy the woke monster, the sooner we can get back to normal. So yeah, you know, I do kind of sometimes think about period pieces though, when they're just, when you're like, shouldn't there be more racism at certain places when they do stuff, and just kind of pretending like it doesn't exist. Like when I watched the Grease musical and they had a lot of black cast, and I'm just like, shouldn't there be more racism in here? It just kind of took me out of the fantasy a bit, because there's a bit of realism still in my head. Like I just can't kind of forget how I wasn't there at the time, but you know, my dad was alive, so I know how things kind of were back in the day, or my grandmother and other stuff. So anyway, they haven't, New York Times hasn't said anything about the kink, but Deadline put out an article about The Little Mermaid and said that it's doing okay domestically, but globally they're not making up their numbers. And so they're saying that there's something weird going on, and they're blaming it on review bombing. And they're saying that there's people around the world who are being influenced by the negative reviews. And people in the comments are very, very certain of this Deadline article that it's racism, that it's racism of Asians and other folks that are not going to go see the movie. And it's interesting. In Germany, movie pilots showed the rating of 0.7 out of 10 before The Little Mermaid release, far lower than any Comp title traction increased throughout the weekend, moving it to 5 rating. Some gripes have been about the murky lighting or even just the why it all remaking the classic, which a lot of people have complained about the lighting and how it looks kind of dull underwater, especially in contrast with how well Avatar's underwater scenes looked. In some pockets of the world, there have sadly been racially tinged commentary. Korea's SBN News reported heading into the weekend that the film had been subject to ratings terrorism in an article whose title Korean entertainment website Azapzi translated to backlash against a Black Mermaid appearance ridiculed ratings drop on day one on the ratings portal of Korea's Naver. Over the past several days, there had been a trend of negative reviews receiving hundreds of likes and positive reviews getting hundreds of thumbs down. On the day of the release, the score was 1.96, which has since evolved to 6.67. Many ultimately have praised Halle Bailey's performance, and in China, it's just a disaster. There is no audience score on Mayan, unusual for a film already in the release of several days. The box office through Sunday is a dismal RMB 17.7, which is 2.5 million, with them projecting a full run of about $4 million. So they usually depend on China to really take movies over the top. One of the reasons why there's an Aquaman 2 is because of China and how much it made over there for some reason. I mean, it just made crazy money overseas. I think it's a weird time for them to release this movie. I think I understand they wanted to do something for Memorial Weekend, and you have that 4-day weekend, it's a holiday, etc. But there's a lot of movies coming out right now. There was a Fast and the Furious film, which my sister, who loves all those films, she said this is the only one that she hasn't liked. But I guess they thought Jason Momoa was too weird and feminine and stuff. So there's Fast and the Furious. And I think next week is Spider-Man. And then the week after that is Transformers, I think. So there's a lot of films coming out right now, so they don't get that good kind of boost this weekend. There's a lot of other movies that they can watch, but there's other movies like in March, and because my family goes to the movies like every week. They go see movies all the time, and they if they had released it earlier, maybe they would have had less competition. So it's a curious thing, but here are the top 5 markets in the movie at open: Mexico 8.5 million, UK 6.3 million, Italy 4.7 million, Brazil 4 million, and Australia 4 million. So stuff is always accused of being review bombed, and there's a lot of people who do review bomb. Do a lot of people really go look at the reviews from critics and stuff to see if they're going to like a film and the ratings before they check out a film? Because me and my sisters, we used to do like Gorgeous Geese, so we talk about movies and stuff all the time, but we started it because we didn't like the reviews that other people were giving, critics were giving, that they didn't understand the material or didn't appreciate the material, whatever. So we would talk about it and we share our thoughts. And I know that there are people who like to hear our opinions and would listen to our particular opinions, but there's people that you trust that you'll be like, oh, I will and won't see a movie because they said something. But as far as like all these different sites, do you just trust like random sites, or like if the New York Times or something said the movie wasn't good, would you not go see it because the New York Times told you to? Like I wouldn't do that. Do most people do that? I would. Like the audience score, if it was well, not the audience score, the critic score on Rotten Tomatoes was terrible for a movie, would I not go see it? No, because they might be looking at different things than I would look at. So, I don't know if these are good excuses, but maybe people just aren't excited about it. There was one comment in here that was pretty funny to me. So many people were just blaming it on racism and lecturing Koreans and other folks for being not open to the Little Mermaid and other stuff. These comments are kind of funny. If you want to read this Deadline article later, just shift through them. But there was one person who was Asian who said that aesthetically that they weren't into the film, and they also mentioned, like, made it a comparison to I guess people were surprised how much Asian folks weren't into Shang-Chi or something. And I don't know if that's true or not, but that was kind of their allegation in the comment. And so someone thought it was so disrespectful and they said that Halle Berry Bailey is beautiful, and the guy who played Shang-Chi was very good looking or something. And they're like, how dare you be disrespectful to my aesthetic and what I do or do not like. And then they said that the guy who played Shang-Chi, that there's so many different people who go to school at the universities that look better than that actor and stuff. And so it was just funny watching the people go back and forth about this. And a lot of people believe that Haley, I mean, she's, a good looking gal and stuff, but people just don't recognize her as their kind of Ariel. But people from different countries have different aesthetics. They like different things just like we did like different things. So does that make them racist? Are you trying to project your particular opinions and views and stuff on other folks? And I don't even know if that's the reason why people don't want to see it. That's just a reason why one person said it wasn't like aesthetically pleasing. So I mean, I've definitely seen certain movies that because certain people looked good and were in it, just to be frank, but I don't know if I've ever seen a movie and been like, oh, there's too many folks I don't want to look at in that film. So I don't think that's a good reason. Maybe they're just not into it. Maybe the Disney constantly kind of doing the woke stuff. Maybe they're just not into it. And maybe they don't see the need for it. Maybe it's just that simple. Maybe the runtime is too long. People keep saying this is for kids. It's for kids, but it's over 2 hours long. It's a pretty long movie. I know people bring their kids to go see Avengers and all that stuff, and those films are long. But there's a reason why Greatest Showman is like an hour and a half, because they were very determined and very strategic about their audience and who they're appealing to. And that was a little movie the critics did not like that film. And I love that film. It's one of my favorite films. And I saw it, how many times I see it in theaters? Maybe 5 times in theaters. I love that film. And that's a film that just got really good word of mouth. The reason why I wanted to see it is because I really like the cinematography, I guess. And they cut really good commercials. And I just saw a little bit about it. But I saw a commercial where Hugh Jackman, he lowered his head and he like did his hat like that, like held the rim of the hat, and you heard that whoa, and it just kind of cut. And I went to school for animation and stuff, so I mean I know a bit about storyboarding and cinematography. I like good cinematography, and I'm like, oh gosh, that looked really good how they cut that. And I was interested in that. And I think I watched a video about when they did the audition for the This Is Me. I think I saw that before I saw the movie. So anyway, I mentioned to my sister that I wanted to see the movie, and I don't mention going to the movies that often. So she's like, oh yeah, let's go see it. So we saw it, and we were just taken aback by it. We loved it so much. We thought it was so good. The music was so good, and the cinematography, the dancing was wonderful. And then we told, other people in the church about it. So we went with someone else. We told our sisters about it. So we went with one group of sisters and another group of sisters. And then we went back to watch it when they had the musical thing. So, but they're very strategic about how family friendly it was going to be. And they were really, really precise about that runtime, because you don't want it to be too long. I've heard families that really like the film, Little Mermaid film, but I've also read of people who brought their kids to see it and it was too long and they left before the movie was even over. So, even the runtime is like really, really long for a film period, but for a kids movie that's supposed to be for kids, I don't really think it's for kids. I think it's for nostalgia and you bring your kids along. But, the thing about it being for nostalgia is that people are like, why isn't this like the thing that I grew up with? So, this is Savvy. She does have a YouTube page, but she's also on, TikTok. She did a review about it, and, people were very upset about her review because she didn't like it, and people attacked her race. you know, called her like Uncle Tom like kind of commentary, like, oh, this sounds like a white woman talking, but it's black skin and other stuff like that. They were so pressed about the fact that she didn't like it, and her movie reviews don't usually go in the For You page and get a lot of traction. But last I looked, it was like 1.1 million views or something like that for a Little Mermaid review. And so I did listen to her whole commentary on the movie itself, and I don't plan to watch it because, again, I think, well, not again, I didn't mention it today, but I think Disney is a deeply evil company, and I didn't want to give them those couple dollars, but I'm very not interested in seeing it myself. But I do think the commentary around this is interesting, because people are so sensitive about it, which for reasons we talked about last week, so I won't go deep into it. As a matter of fact, I think it's time to close for the day. So thank you guys for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed the show and the commentary. You can go to blacktnews.com to learn more, to check out other videos and articles and stuff that I've written. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Cost to stream, cost to run my website, all that good stuff. So if you can support, I very much appreciate that. If you can't, I thank you guys for watching, for commenting, for liking, for tagging other people to let them know to watch. All those things really, really, really do help. So very much appreciate it. Go check out different merch that we have at the store. Go check out, since we talked about the Little Mermaid a little bit, I do have a book called The Dark Mermaid, and which is so funny to me. The most flabbergasted thing about the Little Mermaid situation and them casting Halle Bailey is that Disney isn't loyal to their own brand, how their own character looks. So when I thought it would be, there's definitely nods to the Hans Christian Andersen story, Little Mermaid, in the book, and there's some like snippets of like the Disney story and some little Easter eggs in it. So at first I was like, I don't know, thinking if it was like, when I was thinking about the mermaid's design and her look, I did briefly contemplate like her also having red hair like Ariel, but I'm like, if someone cosplayed her, I wouldn't want someone to think that she was just like a warrior version of Ariel or something like that. So I'm like, she's got to be different. So she actually has blue hair in my story and stuff, but and it's very much not so much like, it's not like the Little Mermaid, at least not the Disney version, but there's definitely pieces that you see similarities and stuff from. So Ariel is their unique version to that story. They didn't make the story up. It's Hans Christian Andersen's story, and there's been different interpretations, even cartoons of that film, and they made Ariel a redhead because they wanted her to be different than the mermaid that came out that year. There was a movie Splash that came out, so they wanted her to be different. So she's different again, I guess, but at least not having the bright red hair that is very iconic with, their character, is so bizarre to me as a content creator myself, as an artist myself, as a writer myself. So that's really the most puzzling thing about it. I don't have as much of attachment to the film as other people have, though I did obviously watch it, as a kid. That was part of the Disney Renaissance. I've seen it many times, heard the songs many times, sang the songs many times, but it's not my movie. It's definitely one of my sister's movies, but it's not my movie. But it's just fascinating, all the commentary and emotion surrounding it. So that's why people continue to talk about it. But I'm not surprised that it's not doing as well as maybe they hoped, and they're pointing to racism and trolls and other stuff like that. There's definitely trolls, but I think at the end of the day, people make up their minds on whether they want to see something, and if they're on the fence and they hear something that validates their feelings, then they'll decide to not go. But if you really want to see something and someone says something that, that you don't like or something, that you're still maybe going to go make up your mind and go watch it yourself. And if you really want to see something and someone says, oh, it was great, I loved it, you're going to be more excited to go see it. When I was going to go see the latest John Wick movie, but then I saw people talking about how good it was, and I was like, we have to see this on opening night or like as soon as we can. So we didn't see it on Thursday night, but we saw it on that Friday night, because usually they would wait. My family waits till like Tuesdays to watch a movie. I'm like, I don't want to wait. I want to see this after church. on Friday. So we did. And it was really, really good. It was worth seeing, you know, but other people's excitement made me excited for it. So all this talk about the review bombing and stuff, that doesn't make sense to me. People will see the film if they want to see it. But I'm not surprised that they're turning toward racism. Anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in, and God bless.